Your show will go live in Blog Talk Radio.
Greetings, welcome, greetings. It's another edition of Revolutionary Hoodoo, New Orleans Voodoo, Secrets and Recipes. All is a blessing. Respect the voodoo, respect the ancestors. Ancestors see me, ancestors see you, ancestors see us all. Come on in, welcome, Havargani, and come on in. Greetings and salutations. Welcome, welcome.
Come back home
To Africa. She's calling your name through the wind. Come back home to Africa. The fatted calf and golden ring are waiting for you once again. Coming back to you. I'm longing for my family. Coming back to you. Out of bondage and now I am free. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da da da. Da da da. Yes, come on in. Welcome. Welcome, Divine All Blessed. Welcome, Alafia. Welcome. Come on in, Habargani. Come on in. Welcome. Call a family member. Call a friend.
and golden ring.
I'm waiting for you once again.
Coming
Back to you. I'm longing for my family. Coming back to you. Out of bondage and now I am free. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da da da. Da da da. Welcome, greetings, come on in. Come on in. It's another day for hoodoo. It's another day for root work and conjure. It's another day. Come on in. Welcome. Greetings. Let me open my Blog Talk Radio chat. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, greetings.
Come back home to Africa. Come back home.
Come back home to Africa. Come back home. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da da da. Da 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 da. Da da da. Da da da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da da da. Divine All Blessed, greetings and salutations, revelations, and manifestation. You are now sitting live with the Divine Prince, and always in archive at your leisure and convenience, here on both blogtalkradio.com/the-divine-prince where you can listen to the show and chat me live on the show. You can also visit me here on YouTube at youtube.com/voodoo Thai, VOODOOTYE. And my live listen in and call in number is area code 845 277 9143. 845 277 9143. Please be patient with me. When you're ready with your question, comment, or request, do press the number 1 on your telephone keypad, and I will be more than happy to bring you into this conversation with other squared circle of gods and goddesses here on your revolutionary Voodoo New Orleans Hoodoo Secrets and Recipes. I'm always honored and appreciative of my regular listeners, my co-hosts, and my superstars of my show, those who participate and ask questions and call in. Greetings to everyone. To Kia, Kiana D. Carter, thank you so much for moderating for us in the chat. Am I missing somebody? Keisha Smith, Hoodoo Occultism, thank you so much for being a powerful contributor to the show. Kayla Talk, thank you so much for continuing to be here. Chris 81, welcome back. Thank you for your participation. And of course, all those who are on my phone lines, I greet each and every one of you individually and collectively. Again, when you are ready with your question, comment, or request, do press the number 1 on your telephone keypad, and I will be more than happy to reach out to you and bring you into the conversation. As always, we can't begin any endeavor without the acknowledgement of our ancestors. Our ancestors stand up in our DNA. For indeed, it has now been scientifically proven, something that we in Voodoo have always known, and that is that ancestral memory survives in the DNA. So ancestral memory survives in the DNA. So the very likes and dislikes that you might possess, the very quirks that you might have, the things that you favor or disfavor are an absolute result of the experiences, the blood, sweat, and tears of the ancestors and those who came before us. We can do nothing without acknowledgement of our ancestors. And I teach my godchildren, I share with my initiates that which was shared with me. And that is, baby, you're getting by on your ancestors. You're getting by on your ancestors. Not always on your knowledge, not always on your common sense, not always on your perfected intuition, but more often than not, even in our ignorance, even in our blindness, our ancestors stand up as our first line of defense. They've had a human incarnation. They know the love, the joys, the hate, the pain, the trauma that we experience in the human life. And so it is your ancestral army, your ancestral defenders who stand up for you first. But today we also acknowledge Obatala, the spirit of the white cloth, the governor of the head, and also said to be the power, the Orisha, that fashioned the body. Even infirmities, and infirmities brought on by too much palm wine, by the way. So there's always that reminder when we operate in the spirit of Obatala, of not just cleanliness, hygiene, purity, but also being of a sober mind, sober thought, not being too far to the left or too far to the right, not over politicizing what might otherwise just be a viral offender that we need to address from the medical perspective, but then also from the spirit perspective. And that's why we're here. We acknowledge Iyami and the great power of women. It's so powerful, said to be more powerful than humanity itself, than both men and women itself. The power to give life, to create and recreate, the power to nurture and to raise up humanity and each new generation of humanity. we humble ourselves to the power of Iyami. And of course, we acknowledge the power that cannot be called by name, the power whose sacred name we don't vocalize. So we say Omalu, we say Babalu Oye, and we stand up with Babalu Oye, and particularly right now in this season. For my new listeners, my new callers, Babalu Oye governs infirmities, calamities, sickness, disease, those things that we battle in culture, in society, in life, within the realms of humanity. My phone lines are hot. Please, I have hands raised. I'm going to go to area code 314. I'm going to say your area code two more times before I open up your mic. I always say your area code three times to give you time to tune down your background noise or whatever, and get it together before I open up the mic. My number is 845-277-9143. Ask your question, comment, or request. Make your statement. Stand your ground. Stand in your truth. And I will be more than happy to bring you in. Area code 314, I am opening your mic. 314. Who's calling from that Missouri land?
This is Wapani calling from St. Louis.
Greetings, beloved. How art thou?
Greetings. I have two separate questions, but my first one I had asked several days ago, but I had to leave before I got the answer, and I don't know if you answered it anyway. And it was about the ancestors. I don't feel a connection to my ancestors because of the turbulence in the family. I just never had that connection. So my question is, how can I reconnect myself to my ancestors, and can I feel and hear them?
Yes. The last questions, can you feel and hear them? Absolutely. Everybody does, even if they're not in tune, even if you're in denial, even if you're not at that stage in your development yet. Now, the first part of your question, um, I want to make it simple, and then I'm going to go into some more complex explanation. The simple answer is be sure that when you say you're acknowledging ancestors, that you're not confusing that with the acknowledgement of relatives. Relatives. Now, ancestors are related to you. In the context of things, they are indeed your relatives. But when I say relatives right now, be sure you're not confusing your ancestors and their value to you with your relatives, your living relatives, and your relationship to your relatives.
I was
Because
specifically thinking about Mert.
hold on, because it goes. That was a great contribution, but give me a second, because it goes beyond just quote unquote your relatives. Now we indeed have relatives. Let me say this first, Wapani, for my listeners, for my ATR listeners. In Yoruba, we have Egun. Egun means bone. Okay, Egun can be a deity, if you will, that represents the dead. But then Eguns, with an S on the end, represents the dead in the most literal sense that we understand. Now, it's not necromancy, it's not zombies, it's not that. It's the people that you know, that you're related to, that have passed on and now are on the other side. Mert would be Egungun, because we're talking about someone who did good in life, fixed, repaired, changed in life, stood up and manifested in their spirit power in life, did great things in life, and then goes on into the spirit realm to move on to heaven, of course. But then there's that set of eguns that have chosen, have contracted to assist us in life. Those are the only eguns that speak up. Those are the only ancestors, Wapani, that speak on your table, that move on your table. Not the ones that cause you problem, not the ones that are attached to the toxicity, those eguns we say are at rest so that they can be healed, repaired, and fixed. We feed them on the floor. We place our plates and our food and our cups and our libation bottles and our offerings on the floor. But then I have an elevated table. Okay. I don't want to give away all my ancestral work in divination. Then I have an ancestral table in which people like Mert, my grandmother, for those who don't know, my mother's mother, my maternal grandmother, she would be acknowledged on that table. And so you might have pictures, you might have obituaries, you might have a high school diploma in a frame, that sort of thing. Because we want to acknowledge those that are helping. We want to acknowledge those that are positive. Now, listen, I'm not suggesting that the negatives don't come up, that the family members that are problematic come up. In Haitian voodoo, that's Gede. That's Gede. Gede is never invited. Gede is never placated. Gede is never called. Gede just shows up with their glasses on, sunglasses on, and one eye missing, and cotton in their ears and in their nose because they do represent the dead. They're closer to a corpse than an ancestor because they are unsettled, they are unfixed, they are unrepaired. They are bound, if you will, to the earth realm because of something great that has to be adjusted, fixed, or repaired. And so they come, show up at the party, show up at the ceremony. They reveal secrets. They pull the covers off of people who see themselves as most together and most tucked away. They come and pull all of your skeletons out the closet. That's Gede. And so we placate them to keep them in the ground. We pour libation and feed them to keep them settled. But if we are not doing our work, and that's the shadow that will come up when one is doing ancestral work, and it's not for the purpose of upsetting life or making you negative or depressed or dark, but those shadows have to be healed, have to be addressed. They represent that is hidden from us, that is just out the range of our view, and they run along often. They skirt along often. Now, don't confuse them with shadow people. Shadow people can be a reflection of your shadow work. Shadow people can be a reflection of your own ghosts that are not being addressed, that are not being healed and then contained. So, you don't have to have their picture on your shrine, Wapani. You don't have to have their items, out where you have to look at them or see them or be reminded of them. You don't have to call their name. In the tradition, we often call
Right.
out the ancestors' names in the process. You don't have to call their name, but we do acknowledge ancestors seen and unseen. I say it in plain English: ancestors seen and unseen, ancestors known and unknown, ancestors that would otherwise do goodwill, ancestors that would otherwise help me and assist me in my best interest. And so, if there's any development of that soul, of that spirit, of that energy, then it will assist you. I made a reference the other day to, maybe someone who's being robbed or attacked, and the ancestor that might have contained the most violence in the family, that might have had the trigger finger in the family, may very well be that ancestor that stands up to defend you uh, in the course of that attack. And so in that moment, we aren't processing all the bad of that individual spirit. Um, and so you don't have to call them out. You don't have to acknowledge them. But when they do come up, give them over to the ancestors. I'm speaking from experience right now. Of course, you're my blood sister, so we connect on a whole nother level. So I don't have to say certain things for you to get it. Um, but in doing my own shadow work, when those shadows would come up, I would give them over to the ancestors. I believed and I was taught that the ancestors that know them the most, that had a hand in the rearing, that had a hand in the experience, that had any involvement in the tragic nature that then got passed down through the bloodline. I call on them to defend. I call on them to protect. I call on them to handle whoever, the problematic spirit might be. So, no, you don't have to honor them. You don't have to acknowledge them in that way. You can acknowledge ancestors in a very general and generic way without calling that particular name. But the spirits, I shouldn't say spirits, but the ancestors, the souls that you want to call forth, like Murtis, yeah, you call her name. I call her name all the time, especially in anything to do with money or business. Are you with me, beloved?
I am. I had to unmute my mic. It was some background noise.
Oh, it's okay.
um, so so to be able to connect and hear ancestral voice prompting and persuasion, how do I do that? Like throughout the day, do I need to set up? Because you already have a sanctuary. Do I
Yes,
need to set up a place of respect for them in that sanctuary?
yes, it can be in the sanctuary, but it should be sacred space. Not that your sanctuary isn't already sacred space, but like your pulpit, like your altar, it should be set apart. It should not be incorporated with the living. So it shouldn't be any living people on your ancestral altar. It shouldn't be around.
There, and then I was going to have, her picture, um, blown up and put in there.
Of my secrets, but Earth absolutely should be represented. Um, Keeping your shrine in an altar, or I'm sorry, in a closet, or in a corner space is also highly recommended. Out of the range of traffic, out of the range of your normal activity, if you will, even in that sacred room, even in that sacred space. The antiqueness of the table. Now, for those who say, "Oh, well, I can't afford that, I can't find that," there's the yard sales, there's the thrift shops, but the antiqueness of the table adds to the ancestral energy. So the older the table, it's great. Don't feel like you have to get the oldest table possible, but if you have one, can access one, that's great. And it does not have to be a table that you're familiar with, meaning that it connected to you or a resale shop, a thrift shop, um, a yard sale. I found stuff in the alley over the decades, that turned out to work.
I was gonna, I was, I was gonna say that actually. When I start putting that thought out there of what I want to do, and now that I know that thoughts carry power, things just actually come to me. People give me stuff just arbitrarily. Hey, I had this extra whatever. Do you need it? And light bulbs go off like, oh my gosh, I was just thinking that yesterday. So that's how I got the table. It just kind of came to me.
Yeah, that happens a lot over the years. Um, and I'm going to answer the question about the mojo bag in a moment, because it's co-related to what we're talking about. They're asking in the chat about, uh, can I do an ancestral mojo bag, and absolutely yes. Um, some people who have their ancestral work and divination done with me, that's a part of their implements. It's included in their implements in some way. But having the antique table, having it in the closet, helps to already set up some of the organization that I encourage. You still got the clean floor underneath. You still got the clean tabletop to work with, and quite possibly, depending on the development of your closet, clean shelves that you might be able to use. Above that, above your head, Ori, your head is always attached to your ancestors, just like your ancestors are attached to you in the blood. So there's no way to have a mind, a head, a consciousness, a brain without an ancestral connection. So Ori and ancestors go hand in hand. The water was a great idea. Water invites. Now, unless the water has plant in it, will sort of help to maintain the natural organic condition of the water. But many of you know that I particularly have a preference for beta fish, Betta. Beta fish, I believe, come from the tropics or from Asia. They exist in small pools of water. They can exist in a puddle of water, if you will. Regions that flood or have a lot of marshy, wetland like environments. And that's why when you see betas in the store, they have them in those little cups. They aren't torturing them. The betas aren't unhappy about being that confined. They can absolutely exist in that. And they're warrior fish, so they can't be in a tank with another fish, another beta fish. Now, they can be around females, but it should be three, four females, enough to sort of distract them from some kind of outright confrontation singly. But I like them.
Question.
They mirror. I'm coming, beloved. They mirror part of who I am. So you want to have water. You want to have the elements on your shrine, um, and of course you want to imbue spirit on your shrine. Go ahead, beloved.
Is it, I don't know what crystals, I need to do that research, which crystals are okay to go in water. But if I have small, say, quartz crystal, is that okay to submerge in the water for amplification, or should I not just leave it on the outside?
On the ancestral shrine, I would just leave it on the
Yes.
outside. I would just leave it on the outside. Um, and I would be careful about putting crystals in water. Absolutely, crystals can be
Right.
very beneficial in water. They can charge the water, but your crystals can also be dulled over time. The water can absolutely damage rock over time. So your crystals can become cloudy if you expose them to water. Now you can buy what I call ice cubes, and ice cubes are like these really clear natural quartz crystals that have been tumbled and or polished. They're good for going in water. They might get a little cloudy, a little rough on the surface over time, but you've chosen them specifically for that purpose. Another stone, it should be in front of me and it's not. Um, I believe it's called shungite. Shungite, and shungite is used to purify water. It actually is a stone, a mineral that can be used to draw infirmities out of water. So you don't have to, but you can. Um, you can. And Wapani, give me a moment to address
Okay.
this ancestral mojo bag. Yeah, ancestral mojo bag can absolutely be made, created, birthed, if you will, um, to go along with your shrine or your altar, but also something that you could carry or tuck to carry your ancestral energy with you. Of course, you would want to have some ingredients bloodline itself, and that can be accomplished in other ways without necessarily creating a bag. It could be the wearing of a family member's jewelry, for instance. Jewelry carries a great deal of energy, especially silver. You want to be very careful with silver in particular. You want to make sure it's clean. You want to give it some moonlight. You want to charge it for a great deal of time before you put it on because it absorbs our spiritual energy. It absorbs our psychic and moon energy. So be careful with silver. Gold is a little bit more common in terms of ancestral pieces you see heirloom brooches and heirloom rings, that are in gold a little bit more frequently than you do silver. I like to shop silver at uh, antique shops, retail shops, thrift stores, pawn shops. You can find some great pieces. Some of the best pieces I've ever had, I found in pawn shops. But again, you want to clean them, charge them, expose them to the light, and do all you can to remove any residual energies that might still be uh, produced in the silver. And there will always be, to some degree, that connection to whoever owned that silver before, but it can be muted. It can be toned toned down, and of course, creating your pouch or bag from cloth or material, hoodoo occultism, that you acquired through the family member, through the deceased family member, that also adds an extra layer of power and charge to your mojo bag. Let's see, Keona, help me out. Hola, hola, Risha, hola. Where's my question? Okay, I got the ancestral mojo. I might be up to date on my questions. Please type your questions in all capital letters so that we might see them and you might not be hearing manifestation and secrets that are revealed here for my YouTube Live audience. If you're not listening in on the phone lines at area code 845, it's not my face, 845 277 9143, 845 277 9143. When the buffering occurs, you're missing words, you're missing sentences, you're missing parts of the show. So I invite you to listen in, call in, but you can watch the show at the same time. Just put your YouTube Live on mute and get on the phone so that way there's no breakup in the continuity of conversation and content. I am always interacting with spirit, sister, and my friend, and somebody who's you know been a part of my experience since birth. She knows that. She can attest to that. And I can go into spirit, I can go into imagination, I can go into creativity with a breath. It doesn't take a lot for me. So that's the realm in which I am most comfortable in. So right now, during this time of COVID-19, the ancestors do come through. The ancestors are speaking. The Orisha are speaking. The Lowa are speaking. God Almighty is speaking. The Goddess is speaking. Mother Nature is speaking. The universe is speaking. And as I stated in my most recent video on Instagram and of course on YouTube, um, Spirit is calling us to be still, to just be, and clarify who we are. We just had this great holiday for many of you, a blood holiday, whether you understand that or not. It's a blood holiday. And the question of should we go or not go, should we participate in this building or not participate? Some organizations took a more radical position, and of course the police get involved, and the government and the judges get involved, and it becomes not just a religious thing but a political thing when it's really just a viral thing. Being safe, being extra cautious, being protective for your family. This is not a question of faith. The question of faith happens at home. The question of faith happens with what do I now do challenge this moment in time space. So I truly believe that God and the divine creators are calling for a timeout. But a timeout also affords us to stand up in our authenticity without our buildings, without our sacred spaces, without our normal routines. And it is in that environment that who you really are stands up in. Sometimes with plenty, I compare it to the military, but boot camp. because they break you down. They try and strip you of your individualism, your personality. You're going to make up your bed the way everyone else makes their bed. You're going to dress the way everyone dresses. Only going to have the same amount of properties, in your locker as everyone else has in their locker. That kind of thing. And the purpose is supposed to be to bring about a greater sense of unity, organization, militarization, industrialization, so that you operate as a machine, as a unit, if you will. But spirit is asking us to stand up individually. Now I know you have family and roommates and children and spouses and all that kind of stuff. But spirit is asking us to stand up individually in our truth. And so your faith is being tested. Your sense of worry or not, your sense of stress or not, how you respond to the triggers, all of that is happening right now. And what makes it so unique and fun to me is it's happening to everybody, sort of at the same time. Now, it's happening in various degrees. Some people who live in the city, we're seeing the reality. I catch myself having this to people in the rural area, and not to be in tune, you know. Um, they seem to hear certain things, and not other things, and you have to bring it back into perspective for them. So we're being asked to be more spiritual now than we've ever been. That in a positive way, not in a negative way. Being creative, being individualistic, and being creative, being able to think outside the box without necessarily having outside interference. You might have commentary from friends, family, whoever you might communicate with on the phone or in social media. But this is your life now that we're talking about. This is our lives now that we're being asked to check and rebalance and reorder. And it's real. What's happening in some homes is very real. The divorce rate right now is very real, and people are responding in their truth. We see the dramatization of men, so that when stuff happens like this, they can continue to hear the show. I understand, and I'm sure you do too, Kiona, and Wapani as well, that some of these people, some of our family that is participating in the show, are only doing so on their device. So they may not be able to call and view at the same time. They may not be able to use, you know, the YouTube app and then use a phone at the same time. So I get that, and I'm not putting pressure on those people, because you're all over the world in Africa and Brazil and Asia and Europe. But those of you who can, it's really more convenient for you if you listen in and tune in here on YouTube at the same time. You don't miss the details. And when one platform goes down, the other platform sort of stands up as a backup. Uh, if I have new questions, please help me out with that, Kiona. I do appreciate you. Um, and of course, you and Wapani, your mics are now open, so you can call. You can just jump in at any time. Wapani's gotten quite good at it. And if you don't have anything to say, you can always mute yourself so that we don't hear your background noise.
No, I have a question because the things that I used to be able to do, I can't do no more. And I was wondering, what is happening because I'm understanding or overstanding, understanding, however the proper terminology is, that there's levels to this spirituality. And so, like, I can't touch certain stuff, or I feel like filthy, or I can't hear certain stuff, or I feel like just like I need to go bathe, or I need to do like a burn Palo Santo. And so I'm just trying to understand, like, what stage is this where it's just you can't be around certain things or even touch it?
Okay, two things. We see that in initiation. We also see that in the wilderness. And for those who don't understand the wilderness, I'll come back and explain that again in a moment. Um, but we also see that with people who are manifesting gifts. without any guidance, without any awareness of what's happening, without any way of making sense of what's going on. Um, as an empath, because you're describing strong empathic symptoms, you're feeling other people's stuff. You're taking on other people's energy. And if you're not careful, it can make you depressed. It can make you emotional. It can manifest mental health diagnoses. All sorts of symptoms can manifest from that. And it gets worse when you are thinking that it's you, something's wrong with me. I'm broken. I need to be fixed. I'm damaged. It's connected to guilt-like energies, toxic guilt-like energies, when it's not put in its proper spiritual perspective. You begin to lash out and take things out on other people, transfer energy onto people. It's been a time in my life when I did that. Wapani can attest to me doing that. And then you have to get into a place, a quiet place, a separate place, sometimes literally and figuratively, where you can journal, where you can take notes. And see, I keep saying journal, but this a thick journal. This an unabridged journal, because this journal is divided. You got your dreams, your daydreams, your creative ideas. Some of you just sit and businesses come up in your head, and business ideas and artistic stuff comes in your head. You should be writing that down. You should be noting that. Um, so another part of your journal might be your dietary regimen, what you're eating, what you're drinking, how much nutrients you're getting, how much rest you might be getting. Particularly someone who's manifesting spiritual gifts, divine gifts, innate gifts. You should be going at it like university. You should be going at it like university medical, and really documenting your experience for clarity. Often you're not going to get confirmation from other people. I didn't say from the outside, because you'll get confirmation from life itself. But sometimes you will not get direct confirmation from other people. You're more likely to get, girl, you crazy. What you talking about? She kind of weird. Something's happening with her. That sort of thing. So you describe someone who's manifesting empathic abilities on a strong level. Um, that smelling thing, that sense on your skin, feeling unclean, feeling dirty. You could also be pulling from time behind you, from your past or from the past of others in your lineage, from past lives. Sometimes that lineage thing shows up as past life manifestation. So that can all be addressed, always first in the crystal realm. I love the crystal realm. Um, it's your go-to pharmacy, in some cases. Um, Black obsidian, nice black obsidian. Black obsidian balls, for instance, black obsidian spheres are my favorite tool for its black hole ability, its ability to pull that negative energy, that toxic energy into another dimension away from you. Wapani, black obsidian on the ancestral shrine is great, especially on the floor. It can go on the table, but especially on the floor. It's a base chakra stone. So if you find yourself sitting on the floor with your ancestors, prostrating on the floor with your ancestors, kneeling and bowing before your ancestors, you want your black obsidian to be on the floor, and it'll pull the truth to the surface. But anything else that's not useful, that's not helpful, that's toxic, that's negative, it'll suck it right out like a black hole into another dimensional space to be purified and recreated somewhere else. I say it all the time. All energy, according to Einstein, was created at the Big Bang, at the beginnings of creation. So all negative energy, all positive energy is here. It's here. It can be moved around. It can shape shift. It could be conferred upon. It can be transferred away from or transferred to something, but it's here, like the yin yang sign. So the black hole concept gives us a better understanding, a better sense of clarity about what's really happening with this negative energy we remove. Even if you're familiar with the magical book story, the magical book and its story about the Bay of Pigs, those demons, those jinn, had to go somewhere. And according to the story, the Christ sent them into the water, into the pigs, and the pigs ran into the water, and drowned themselves. So that energy has to go somewhere. It has to be sent back to its absolute source. Often in shadow work, I send things back to their source, back to the origin. And if that origin is me, I have to be prepared to then cleanse it. When you work with black obsidian, you have to then but also the energy that black obsidian brings to the surface. Unlike black tourmaline, which sort of shoots that energy away out either end of the black tourmaline piece, black obsidian is going to just sort of bring it to the surface, bring it to the atmosphere, if you will, and then allow you an opportunity to clean it.
Can I address the black tourmaline?
Yes, beloved.
That black tourmaline, it seems to be a really good friend to me. I've heard so many say, we know someone in particular, they use black tourmaline or even hematite, bad things start happening to them. But I always believe that when I use my black tourmaline, when I'm out on a trail, if I have to go out around other people, and it works well for me. I actually wear my black tourmaline near my heart chakra and not my root chakra. Can you give me an insight on which is preferred, which is more effective, and why this black tourmaline, some people can use it and some can't?
It has to do with where you're vibrating, where you are in your journey. Your shadow work having been done, your homework having been done, and then the activation of chakras. Now, if you're stuck in the first, second, third chakra, black obsidian can manifest the illusion of problems, but they're generally self-created problems, problems that you seeded that now come back, chickens that now come home to roost, if you will. So and I warn people, even that individual, that if they handle their business, it would bring truth to the surface. Black obsidian, black onyx. My egun is black onyx. Black obsidian and tourmaline. I don't have a piece. Well, I do have a piece of tourmaline. I would just have to not be. I would just have to get up and get it. But your dark stones are lower chakra stones. They're base chakra stones, second chakra stones, third chakra stones. And so they're either going to amplify what's happening down there, or they're going to mute the energy black tourmaline. And as you can see, it has some druce on it. I believe that's apophyllite druce. That snow is called druce, but I believe the specific mineral is apophyllite. Druce is sort of a generic name for any kind of frosty, crusty, added mineral that you find on another mineral. As we call that an inclusion. When a base mineral has another mineral present on it, that's present on it or in it, that's called an inclusion. And the included mineral adds extra to what's happening with the base stone. So yeah, look how shiny that is. Black tourmaline irradiates a great deal of light, and light passes through it rushes through it, like fiber optics, if you will. So it cleanses, it moves that energy around, Wapani, and it's moving it around out of you, but also out of people around you and your environment. Everything we do irradiates out to the edges of the universe and then returns back to us. That's why we create and recreate our reality. And so you've done a great deal of your base chakra work, obviously, second chakra work, third chakra work. And so the fourth chakra, now your heart, is being cleansed, is being purified. And not to read you or judge you live on air, you can still have blocks at your fourth chakra. And so the black tourmaline is working in that area for you and with you right now. Because we don't always like the same stones, we don't always use the same stones. You might wake up one day and switch to another stone, um, empathically. So right now, the black tourmaline is clearing out any blockages that might still exist with you and for you at the fourth chakra level. And that's a really good thing. I don't typically suggest people wear dark stones above the fourth chakra, and particularly for long periods of time. There are certain dark or black stones that I don't suggest people wear at the heart chakra at all. So you brought up a good point. That was great. And the mineral, the stone that your reference was talking about was onyx, specifically onyx. I remember those stories distinctly. It was onyx that brought her bad luck. Callers, please press the number one. I see you all listening to me because I can see people sitting in the whole pattern on Blog Talk Radio, but your hand is not raised. So please call me at 845-277-9143. Do press the number one on your telephone keypad. I'll be more than happy to bring you into the conversation. I was talking before we got into addressing more questions about spirit speaking, and particularly right now during this time space. Even in the video, I mentioned prophetic, prophetic, be creative, be imaginative. It's a thin line between being imaginative and being creative, drawing, crocheting, knitting, and going into the spirit realm. Particularly if your environment is quiet, or your environment is still, or your environment is peaceful, or your environment, you got on your 9811, whatever the radio number is, wave music out of California, your soft jazz, your bird sounds going on, and you're being creative. Your mind, now your right brain, is activated and allows you to go into sort of this creative realm. And so you're able to see and hear not just color and sound and energy and notes and music, but hear and see into the spirit realm. And so prophecy does take place. We know many songs, we can point to many songs that we could say are prophetic. We could point to TV shows like The Simpsons that we could say is very prophetic and has hit it on the nose many times. During crises like this, and particularly during times of war, I probably only said this on air once or twice before. Another gift that I have that I don't share with a lot of people, and I'm going to share with you right now in the confines of this private space, this sacred space. During acts of war, 9/11, the Gulf War, I astral travel a lot. And I'll give you a great example. It's the Gulf War. And I'm thinking it's probably 1990 when I had this experience. And I'm in meditation. And then the same thing happened in a dream as a reinforcement. And it's the Persian Gulf War. I'm above the war, like a genie on a carpet. except I'm on a cloud, not a carpet. And it's not a very big cloud. It's just big enough, like a chaise lounge, just big enough to carry me. And I was in a very typical Middle Eastern body posture. If you ever see them and how they sit when they eat, or and in their cultural space, it was very akin to that. So I was comfortable. I was relaxed. I was wearing fine linen. I had on all my jewelry, um, but I'm floating, sort of riding at an even pace over the war, and I'm sprinkling dust. All I can call it is fairy dust. That's all I can call it. Spirit didn't give me a name for it. I didn't empathically assume, some other name for it. So since the day I had this dream, all I call it is fairy dust, and I'm sprinkling it over the war, over the U.S. soldiers. Then the U.S. soldiers begin to come home, and we hear these rumors that they may have been exposed to biological warfare. And it became clearer to me that I was offering some aid, some kind of protection. So when the 9/11 came, I wasn't in New York. I was in Chicago. I was on Chicago Avenue, Chicago and State, in a high-rise building. I can't remember what floor I lived on. 10, 11. I can't remember exactly what floor I lived on. But I was up high. It was the morning of 9/11, and I was one of the people who woke up and tuned in to it, in time to really catch it in real time, not the repeated rebroadcasting, that goes on all day and then days later after an event occurs. So I was up 6, 7 o'clock that morning, had my Folgers coffee, doing my thing, and the TV news is on. I'm a news junkie. I watch all the news on all the channels from all the sources. And so I'm watching this in real time. And again, spirit stands up in me and I leave my body. And I'm in 9/11. And I'm now free falling, but it's a controlled free falling. And of course, it was an hour or so later that they started showing people jumping from the building, basically trying to escape the inferno to what they thought was their only option. So now, in the course of this virus, I find myself leaving my body. I find myself touching people's hands and touching people's head, and particularly their head. And I ask Spirit, why? What's this up here? And Spirit said, because we're more concerned about people's heads than people's hands. Meaning, I'm not that concerned about hygiene. Some of you are already clean, super clean, even before this event happened. And now you just have to add another layer of cleanliness onto that. Those of you who are actively, authentically operating in ATR, you have to be clean. Your shrines, your shrine areas, your ancestral areas have to be clean. Your house has to be clean. So I know many of you on the sound of my voice are already clean, and so I don't worry there. My soulmate, I worry about the head. Someone who is caught up in the politics of the day and what the president might be saying, or what any particular set of politicians might be saying, and not looking at this as witchcraft, as viral warfare. Um, yeah, it's a form of witchcraft, in my opinion. So we not only have to be clean and concerned about what we're touching and what we're making contact with and what we're breathing in, um, but our thinking about what's happening. It's the people who don't show a whole lot of concern. It's the people that aren't worried very much that give me the greatest concern, that invoke the most fear in me. Those people give me the greatest concern. So in my astral traveling, in my dreams, and even in my waking state during the course of this viral invasion, I'm seeing cloudiness, dark areas with fire, a great deal of fire, and then a few just water, almost like they're drowning, almost like you're suffocating. And this is the time to do the work. This is the time to do the work. This is the time to be still and be conscious and be spiritual and be ritual and be God and be goddess. This is the time. I love the attention to the ancestors right now. Not just my sister Bonnie, but my clients and my initial people who are contacting me. People are really taking this serious. I can't say I've seen another time when people were this serious about getting the work done, about wanting to read these books, about wanting to do these notes, about wanting to do the homework, about wanting to do Ibori, about wanting to address chakras, about wanting to get unclogged and unbacked up, literally and figuratively. People are paying attention to their health, absolutely. People are exercising now without even having to leave the house, without even having to go to the gym. Uh, Serena Williams, I think it is, has a real popular series of videos that she's been doing, lifting gallons of milk, doing exercises that you can do at home without going to the gym. Well, this is the time Spirit is saying you can't go to your churches. You can't go to your mosque. You can't go to your synagogue. Don't let that be a crutch. Hear what I'm saying, religious. Don't get offended. Don't let that be a crutch to your manifestation spirit. Don't be so attached to your magical book that if you don't have it, you're without power. Because that suggests that the power is not within. That suggests that you don't have the power. That's the, you're borrowing the power. You renting the power. You co-leasing the power through some object, person, place, or thing. So your spirit, your God, your God, your ancestors should be able to stand up, whether you're at that physical building or not, whether you can make it to that location or not. And people, as Wapani's doing, are creating sacred space now at home. I'm doing a lot of ancestral work right now. I'm doing more work right now than ever before. People are, uh, in a humorous way, people are going to church right now. People are going to church right now, but they're doing it at home and they're doing it in ATR. They're doing it in Voodoo and Ifa Yoruba and Khan and other indigenous traditions. But people are going to church right now. And I believe the spirit. I believe the ancestors. Always. And so we're being asked to be still, to be quiet, to be contemplative, to be meditative, to be whole, to be complete, to be happy, to be hopeful about the future, to be creative, to be self-creative, to be reproductive. Remember, I predicted a baby boom. It's come Christmas and going into 2001, we're going to have a lot of babies coming into the world under these present conditions. So just be. You're not being asked to do anything. You're not being asked to recreate the wheel. You're being asked to recreate yourself. You're being asked to be original, to be individual, to be independent, to be autonomous, to be unique, to be different right now in this moment in time space. You're not being asked to shake off, your belief system to shake off your religion, and neither am I. Hopefully, prayerfully, I'm giving you a tool, a greater tool, to address result-oriented work, realities that we all as humans, that humanity is confronted with each and every day. I often refer to that as the weather. As the weather. We don't cry when it rains. We don't cry when it snows. We don't cry when it's windy. We don't cry when it's hot, and the ground is parched. We wait on the weather, and we do what we can to adjust, protect, and be prepared for the weather. So this is just a new weather, a weather we haven't experienced in 100 years or more, in over a century. And we're being asked to just be still, and just be still and be. And so people are reading, and people are watching movies and documentaries, and people are writing and drawing and crocheting and knitting and working clay and working metal, welding metal, and just being creative. And so the world is going to be so colorful in 2001 and 2002. And some of you, particularly those that I'm working with, are going to be quite successful, if not wealthy, in the coming years. Not because of some magical money fall out the sky, because of the creative energy of their own hands. That it's in their hands right now. It's divinely innate, inherent. The money is already there, but they have to create. They have to draw it. They have to write that book and get it completed for the publisher. They have to crochet. They have to knit. They have to create their jewelry products, to meet their goal. And so therefore, the success, the prosperity that we want, that we need, is already in our hands. It's already in your hands. But it takes your head, your ori, to release it. Your head has got to give it permission. Your head has got to let it out and let it go. And if your ori is blocked up with other stuff, particularly that shadow stuff that we don't see or choose not to see, then we find that we have challenges along our journey. Greetings, greetings, greetings. I welcome you to.
Well, thank you so much.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much, because I needed to understand that, because I feel like I'm going crazy because I can't eat what I used to eat. My body is rejecting it. I get nauseated. I can't look at what I used to look at. Even now, like, I cuss like a sailor. I'm having to even stop from doing that. Everything is just hypersensitive, even more than what it has been. And I've been accused of being a lesbian because guys flirt with me and I'm not interested in them at all, and completely turned off. And I'm just not. I'm just into spirituality and business. That's all I care about right now.
Amen and Ashe. I can remember back in the late 80s, I was in California. I'm going through my personal growth and initiations and transformation. I can remember consciously being aware of a rejection of certain meat, particularly beef and chicken. I can remember the first time that I sat in front of a piece of chicken, and it was different to me. It just looked different to me. The size wasn't right. The texture wasn't right. The feel of it in my mouth wasn't right. And so that was the beginnings of me becoming vegan, vegetarian, and now subsequently a flexitarian. Same thing with ground beef. And listen, this is before I found out that they were pumping carbon dioxide into your package. And when I say packaged meat, I mean when you buy ground beef, pork chops, raw chicken, and they wrap it in the plastic and put it in that freezer section, they pump carbon dioxide into the meat to keep it red, to keep it looking fresh, to keep it looking natural. This is the truth now. Some kind of dye or something looked like was being put in the ground beef. And then even if I could get my mind to get beyond what it looked like, Kiona, my mouth and my body wouldn't take it. Either I couldn't get it down, or it wouldn't stay down, if you know what I mean. So, yes, that's a part of the process. People change their attitude towards food. People change their attitude towards stress and how they confront stress. I'm sure Wapani might agree with me. I applaud Wapani. Wapani has lost a great deal of weight over the years. And she doesn't often talk about that, or how she did that, or what that means for her, and experiencing it with her. So yeah, you
I can
changed.
touch on that if you like.
Please.
Um, Actually, I started going through a paradigm shift before I ever lost the first pound. I had to start looking at a different model and seeing myself in a different way. And it wasn't even about losing weight, it was about total well being, mind, body, and spirit. And so many of us become afraid to even make that leap because it's going to affect everyone around you. But sometimes you just have to take yourself and make yourself the priority and not make everyone else the priority above you. So I had to change the way I was thinking in my relationship with food. And I started finding other outlets to bring me comfort or satisfaction besides food. That's when I started walking. I got from Mert, our grandmother. I went from a plate down to a saucer and started eating on a. Well, first I went from two plates to just one plate, and then I went from eating a 2 pound Symphony candy bar every day because I weighed almost 300 pounds to just eating one of those Hershey nuggets or two a day. And then I went from one plate to a saucer. I cut out all sweet nonsense, Kool-Aid, soda. I cut all of that out of my diet and started just drinking water. And on those walks, that served the purpose for mind, body, and spirit. Because for me, it wasn't even about exercise. It was about having a space where I could hear God clearly when I'm alone and developing that aspect. And it changed everything. And in the end, when I finally settled, I had lost about 130 pounds.
Congratulations, and I'm soaking up everything because in my ignorance of coming out of Christianity, the calling is crazy, and I felt it as a child, but it's getting more and more and more and stronger. And as a child, my mom used to always tell me like, you don't know who you are. And I was a child, I didn't know what she was talking about. I thought she was crazy. She was like, you just don't know who you are. You don't know who you are. And so I remember now that she's passed on, and I just keep thinking, like, Lord, like and I know I'm not supposed to say, Lord, different things on this path. I just keep thinking, because that was what I came up in. All I want to go into meditation and worship mode. Meditation and worship mode. Yeah. When I come out of worship mode, I want to go into business. I want to heal. I see something and I immediately want to heal it. But then I'm cognizant as to everything because I can't touch everything. So I'm sensitive as to if this is a battle that I want to go up against. And it's like, what am I experiencing? What am I to do? How do I being told that I'm a witch or demonic when I'm creation as to why I came here? So thank you so much.
And listen,
I needed to hear that.
I want to say too that walking is greatly underrated. Greatly underrated. Even the way Wapani said, that I started walking. It's a bigger thing than just walking. For me, that's my prayer space. I do my best prayer, my best connection to spirit when I'm walking. It's a meditation. It's a form of worship. It's a ceremony in many ways. I also feel the same way about biking. I love to ride my mountain bike. And I love organized trails, cities that have organized trails through the woods or through the mountains or through the creek areas, where you can really get out and connect with spirit and yourself. So I appreciate that. I appreciate you sharing your story, sharing your experience. I would invite others that are listening with us right now to do the same. We have a great deal of people who are listening on the radio, and of course that are listening and sharing with us in YouTube Live. And I invite you to call me at 845-277-9143, 845-277-9143. And it is not just Omolu, Bubble today, but also you may have heard me mention that every night at 6 p.m. U.S. Central Standard Time, we ring bells. The church bells ring, people ring their bells, and of course I invite you in the ATR community to do the same at 6 p.m. Wherever you are, for a minute or two, just to ring bells over your work, ring bells over your shrines, ring bells over your ancestors, ring bells to acknowledge the unified spirit, the unified power that we possess as divine beings to create change and transformation in our own image, in our own image. So we can imagine a world without this virus. We can reimagine a world where we're not challenged in the way that we are in this moment. But bigger than this moment is the new world that we exist in today, because we're not going back to get that, because we've gone from 2 weeks into April to April 30th to May 30th. I'm telling you, I'm telling you, Spirit has already showed me we're not moving for 90 days. We're not moving till July. And even then, if we are moving about, it'll be a different world. We may still very well be wearing masks. We will be handling business, banks, retailers in a very different way. They will not get a grip on this for at least a year. Some of you who trust in humanity, who trust in doctors, who trust in science, who trust in medicine, and I do too, even they can't get a grip on this for at least a year. At least a year. So lean into the transformation. Surrender to the transformation. And do it from a position like I have, where you can be happy about it, where you can enjoy what's happening, where you can use this moment, this pause time to your best advantage. I'm telling you, I've cleaned, I've reorganized, I've moved furniture around in here by myself. you know, um, I'm doing the work that Spirit would have me to do. I've readjusted my shrines. I've moved some of them around a little bit. I brought some things together to do and address new blockades of energy. This is a blockade of energy. In this, the shortcut, for those of you who are always looking for the shortcut to something, is to do the homework. Is do that self homework. The site at www.houseofthedivineprince.vineprince at houseofthedivineprince.com. And always send your offerings and donations by way of PayPal. PayPal.me/the Divine Prince. And of course, divine is Divine. If you put DE, I'm not going to get it. I'm not going to get it. And so I appreciate you. My call-in number is area code 845-277-9143, 845-277-9143. When you're ready with your question, comment, or request, please do press the number 1. That virtually raises your hand so that I can see it on my switchboard here. And then I can open your mic and bring you into the conversation. And of course, if you're in the chat, Kiona will help me to see your questions, whether they be in all capital letters or properly respond to you today. Piece. Revolutionary. Revolutionary. What does revolutionary mean to you? How do you understand and interpret revolution? What is your knowledge of the history and background of revolution, and particularly revolution among our people, and its connection to martyrship, revolution and its connection to protest, standing up, being heard, doing things a different way? And so, yes, Kiona mentioned, it's a new day now where we must be organic and authentic in our demonstration, and to walk in what we say we walk in on social media out there in them streets, to walk in what we say in social media with our family and our friends. And so I often, as shady as it might be, I asked, do your grandmama know you a witch? Do your mom and your daddy know you a voodoo priest? You on here saying you a voodoo priest, but do your mom and them know? Do your uncle and them know? Do your brothers and sisters know? Or is this just some face, some mask that you put on for social media, some perpetration that you do in the assumed, you know, autonomy of the internet, where there is no autonomy, by the way. But it's assumed that you can't see me, you can't hear me, out here on this platform, and so I can say and do what I want. And some people get a sense of freedom from that, as crazy as that might sound. And so people perpetrate all kind of things: wealth, prosperity, celebrity, political and religious platforms. And so ATR is no different, of Paulo and Conjure and whatnot. Self proclaimed, professed witches, you know, that only found out about the tradition, 3 months ago. So I get it. I do. And that's why I show up every day, and particularly in this time right now, when many people are home and bored or aggravated, one or the other or both. I try to be present and bring truth and stand up in my truth in a world that often rejects my truth, that often rejects people who look like me, people who live like me, people who love like me. So I have a drive to do it. People ask, how do you do this every day? Doing a show of 2 hours, 3 hours, it's like a job every day. But I have a drive to do it. It's who I am. It's what I would be doing if the camera was not on. It's what I would be doing if you could not see me right now, if you did not know me right now. So I live for these moments to speak my truth, and I invite you as well to speak yours. And I invite your questions, your comments, your criticisms, your shady little innuendos. I invite them now at area code 845-277-9143, and then press that number 1 and I'll open your mic.
And I'm here to serve. I'm here truly to serve. I stop whatever I'm doing, wherever I'm at, because this is my calling. I physically get sick when I don't give heed to the spirit or give ear to the spirit or follow through, and my head is getting louder and louder. So for me, it's service. It's not a chore, it's not a burden, it's truly service because it's my calling.
Well, I'm grateful for you that that's been your only symptoms. For me, my life had to be turned upside down many times. I had to be on the street. I had to be homeless. I had to go through hell and back to get some level of clarity and balance in my life.
So it's not just me, because I thought I was going crazy.
I mean,
I thought I was going crazy. I thought I was going crazy because I've been going, everything that you're saying, I'm sorry to cut you off, but you just lit a fire in me.
But aren't you listening?
Because I'm like, what is it? Why does it take so much from me? What am I doing wrong? Why does it take so much? Everyone else can do this. Why am I different? And you just hit the nail on the head.
But aren't you listening? I mean, haven't you been listening? Not just to me, but to society. There's a little saying, To whom is called, much is required. To whom is
I
called, much
did,
is
I did, but
required.
I still wanted to give weight to myself. I still wanted to try to blend in, like Jonah and the whale, the story from the magical book. Not to say that's me, but that's just I wanted to just say, okay, I hear you, but I'm gonna do this. And I mean,
My mom likes to say, God speaks in a soft, still voice. A soft, still voice. And I added to that by saying it won't shout with you, it won't argue with you, it won't debate with you. It's going to sit patiently, sometimes silently, and wait for you to be still, for you to be open, for you to hear, for you to listen. And not just, okay, I'm listening. No, listening. Without the inner debate, even in our own thoughts, without the inner back and forth. Um, so when we can't hear that, it often will show up in other ways. And dreams, Wapani, is one of the ways that will manifest. So our dreams are not just, I ate bad Chinese food last night. I had bad Mexican last night. I had too much greasy food. Dreams absolutely are real, according to Einstein in the theory of relativity. Dreams are absolutely real, but they exist in another dimensional space. And we exist in 11 dimensional spaces at once to create and recreate our reality. And within those spaces, there is a space that mirrors, to some degree, our waking reality, but certain things might be off. The color changes might be different. There's another dimensional space that doesn't mirror our reality at all. And so it's as wild as your imagination. It's as creative as what you can imagine and or envision. So paying attention to our dreams, as I say almost every day, is critical. Critical. And journaling them are important because spirit will often speak to us things that we can't hear, can't see, can't process during our waking state when we are dreaming. Our dreams are also a product of, the natural organic function of your brain trying to organize all of your thoughts, put all of your thoughts in the proper folder, in the proper time period, in the proper order, in the proper priority, etc. And all the pieces are not always present. So our brain will then fill in the blanks. I've talked about the little meme that we see in social media where the poem or the paragraph, all the words have mixed up, jumbled up interiors, but the first letter and the last letter remain the same. And depending on the state of your consciousness, some of us can see and read that without any problem and know exactly what's being said. Whereas others, it's just some jumbled up stuff and they can't make sense of it. So paying attention to dreams, interpreting dreams, being able to sit and meditate on a dream is very important, Wapani. Sometimes what's happening in the dream, in the moment, does not manifest itself right away. And we don't always remember our dreams. Even 15 minutes later, we don't always remember our dreams when we wake up. And that's why I strongly suggest that you, if you are able to, and particularly right now, that you wake up naturally. Don't be woken up. Don't be woken up by an alarm clock. Allow your body to wake up naturally. That's one of the things that in this present modern society, many of us, we lost contact with what that is. The ability to lay down, sleep to the fullness that your body wants, and then wake up, like teenagers do when their body is growing and the hormones are raging and the growth hormones are doing their job. Our consciousness require a certain amount of rest, a certain amount of time to process, life and what's going on around us. and to be able to wake up naturally um, is a special thing now for people who have to work, people who have to get up and feed the kids or get up and feed the dog, or respond to an alarm clock because they have somewhere to be. And take that time to journal what you feel, what you can remember about your dreams, the details that happen in the dream. And Wapani, I'm really curious about the details of your dream, but let me look at Keisha Smith's comments first.
Yes, but you
Okay.
with the dream and Keisha Smith comment, but I apologize for cutting you off when you were talking about what you had experienced when you were coming into on this path, have studied and mastered other paths. And so this is Kiana, and I if you once you
Okay, I'm good.
go in the order that you choose with the
Yeah, I'm
dream,
good.
I really am interested. I'm really am interested in hearing about that because I'm experiencing. Um, Coming out of and still experiencing what you said that you experienced on your journey.
Yeah, I was responding to Wapani's chat question about dreams, and she asked, could we talk about dreams? And so I'm assuming that Wapani has a lot to say, and is going to tell us about this dream, if possible. And that was sort of my segue, my entryway into that conversation. Go ahead, Wapani.
Yeah. The dream, well, it's two dreams. The most recent dream, I was walking through a hospital with a group of people. We were going to visit somebody in ICU, and they kept playing over the loudspeaker this song over and over again in a loop to the point where I started humming it. And it had a very soothing, comforting melody, just this beautiful melody. And somebody made a comment, girl, you know you can't hold a tune. And I was like, you got me? Mm-mm. And so I started singing it, and everybody just stopped and looked at me. And I actually shocked myself because it was pitch perfect, and the words were so deep. Now, the problem is when I woke up humming this melody, but the words started leaving me quickly. The more tried to think about the words, it was like trying to grab mist. And then the melody started leaving me. And I was wondering, dream, I know it had a significant meaning of comfort. It was a very spiritual words, like God was talking to me. The words were like that. But was it just for the moment to bring me comfort in that moment? Because that leaves the pattern of the recurrent dream that I've been having about different ways of drowning, like tidal waves washing over me, drowning, then water coming up from all over the city, rising up to like 10, 20 stories high and burying me in a building. I've been having these drowning dreams repeatedly in different ways of being drowned, and then I had this one dream with the comfort.
Okay, yeah, you confused me when you threw this other dream, the drowning dream, in there towards the last. But I think I got it together in my head. Um, you call it the comfort dream. I'm seeing and hearing something completely different. Now, it might be comfort. It might be about spirit speaking through a song. It may even be about you capturing the song, writing the song down, and then subsequently, performing the song, singing the song out here in the real world. But my spirit points more to it also representing that which you might be denying, that which you might be containing, that creative part of you which really wants to burst forth and come out. You still might need some pushing. You still might need some motivation. And you might think, "Oh wow, I'm motivated. I'm out there. I'm right where I want to be right now." But that dream would
No, I'm not.
suggest that you could be, yeah, you could be better. You could be higher. You could be greater, and you very well could be holding back on skills and abilities that, as I said a few minutes ago, could be bringing you great prosperity in the coming years if you would get beyond your comfort zone, your fear of, or your insecurity of, or and I'm not reading you right now. I'm just speaking in general to anyone who would be listening to this. Getting beyond your blocks that are preventing you from being creative. I guess I'm also responding to Portia Simmons about rubbing aloe vera together with other plants. It could very well be, your ancestors or your spirit guide even telling you that there's some greater knowledge of this you need to, of this dream that you need to be actively participating in. So it could be about a ritual with the plants. It could be about healing, beloved, with the plants. It could have been many things you could have been doing with the plants. But I think more importantly, the rubbing of the aloe vera with other plants together suggests some brew, some mix, some concoction, some potion. And be careful that you're not creating some concoction, some potion in real life and mixing up elements that you think you're familiar with elements that you're really not familiar with, which might not result entirely in the way you want. So I want to talk about dreams with Pawnee. I agree with you, and I wish more people would call in now to 845-277-9143 and talk about dreams, among other things in the context of revolution. Area code 310. 310, I'm opening your mic. It spins a little bit. It might be open now. 310. Greetings. Who's calling and where are you calling from?
Hello, Divine. This is Julia Rose in New York City from your comment section.
Greetings, beloved. Thank you so much for calling in. Now, if I can be just a little bit shady, just allow me, please. Divine
Yeah.
is an old drag queen from the 1970s. She dead. I'm Divine Prince.
Okay.
Okay, I'm Divine Prince. Okay. Go ahead, beloved.
Gotcha.
Go ahead. What did you want to share?
I think you made a really interesting. Oh, thank you for having me, of
Yes.
course. And I think you made a really interesting comment today. And I wanted to ask you how you. Okay, because yesterday was a holiday. There has been a slight division in my family because of my great grandmother's beliefs and how she tried to raise. I'm the oldest of 6 kids, and she tried to instill in us spiritual ways away from Christianity. And myself and my second sister are the only ones that have really pushed forward in our other spiritual beliefs. But yesterday was a Christian holiday, and I find that because I stand so strongly in my spiritual beliefs, I get a lonely kind of feeling. And I wanted to ask you, do you feel that way? Because the majority, like, I kind of feel like an outsider. Do you get the feeling that because majority are all the way into it, or if they're not, but majority of my family is still very Christian. So I get these feelings of loneliness during these Christian holidays or feeling left out. And how do you combat that emotion?
I want you to breathe and breathe again. And I want you to say, I am. Like Moses in the Bible. I am. I can't hear you.
Oh, I put it on mute. I put my phone on mute because the last time I felt like I
Okay.
was talking over you. I didn't want to do that.
I need you to
Go
say
ahead.
I need you to say I am. Like Moses in the Bible. I am.
I am.
Say it again.
I am.
Now I want you to say, I am enough.
I am enough.
And that's your answer. That's your answer. You are enough. And if you're in line with spirit, if you're in line with your ancestors, if you're in line with God, you are enough. You are enough. If you're not bringing harm, if you're not bringing division, if you're not a part of the confusion, if you're not a part of the drama in your family, you need to breathe and sit in the truth that you are enough. Now, for me to say, oh no, that wasn't my experience with my sister listening, that would be a lie. Absolutely have I gone through uh, degrees. I've gone through isolation. I've gone through being ostracized. Um, I've gone through, being the problem child, because I ran away from home before the truth, if you will, of the madness that was going on in my house became public. So at first, I was a problem. I was crazy. I was doing something wrong. But then you carry that into your adult life, and particularly when you have this spirit energy that's walking with you, where you do all you can to sort of conceal that light to some degree, and people still see it and still respond to it, and not always respond to it in the most positive of ways. I've never had a quote unquote long term relationship. Um, so I absolutely can say I understand, I get that feeling. And it's not very many people that I can call right now and talk about my life the way most people, chat with their girlfriend or their buddy, about the regular course of life. It's very few people outside of Wapani and my mother, who many of you know as an evangelist, book author, and minister, that I can really talk to about my life at all. And I'm talking about voodoo. I can talk about voodoo with Wapani. I can talk about voodoo with my mother. I can't talk about voodoo with most of you. I'm either going to get sort of that Arisha romantic, um, elementary school level, you know, let's talk about, love spells and binding. I'm not even going to get Orisha in its most authentic context. I'm not going to get the language often. I'm not going to get the Yoruba because a lot of us are still struggling to learn it, or not even trying at all. So it's very few people that I can even hold a conversation with, that are either not trying to get my help, seek my help, or are not trying to sell me something. So I get it. I do. And just like now, with this quarantine, you're being asked to be still, to be quiet, to realize, to know who you are, and what exists within you. Because see, once you understand that, you don't feel alone. You don't feel isolated. You don't feel cut off. And it then begins to also show up in your real world time. Uh, People will be present for you. People will show up for you. People will come to your aid. And it doesn't mean that you change. I haven't, I've changed. To say we have not changed would be a negative. We all change. We all should change. We all should continue to grow, develop, transform into something better, to be renewed into something better. But to some degree, I'm the same person, and so they meet me where I am. So I don't always have to be super social. I don't always have to show up at the party, show up at the club, show up at the events, to be seen, to be heard, within my community. I'm grateful to Juan LaFonta. This ain't a commercial, but let me give a shout out right now to Juan LaFonta. He's a personal injury attorney here in the city of New Orleans. Many of you know of Juan LaFonta because of the Big Frida Juan LaFonta bounce commercial. But I want to give a shout out to Juan LaFonta because I talked one day on air about being dehydrated and needing some water. Because at that time I did not have the proper uh, cleaning mechanisms, to drink water out of the tap. And so I was just off the cuff talking about I needed water, and Juan LaFonta showed up at my house like 15 minutes later with water and plenty of it. So be open to yourself. Be open to who you are. Be open to the universe. And know that when you hear, old folks say, God takes care of me, the goddess takes care of me, the ancestors look after me, that's more than just faith talk. That's tried in the fire experience speaking. And particularly in the case of me, I'm not the ethereal, up in the air kind of psychic fortune teller. My feet are very much planted on the ground. And so things have to make sense to me. Things have to add up to me. Things have to be repeatable, doable, documentable, if you will. And so I'm a living witness of the power of what the Orisha can do. I'm a living witness of the power of what Loa can do. I'm a living witness of the power of what God and the ancestors can do. And how they will stand up and we show up as a part of the challenge. And the illusion appears to be outside of us, existing in the physical world in some way, when it's really a reflection of who and what we are, a reflection of how we're truly walking, how we're truly standing. And so I invite you, and especially right now during this time, when all we're being required to do is to be, and to be still, and to stay at home. I'm watching. Some of y'all are moving around, and I just don't get it. I just don't get it. People that I know. Now, I have one, I get it. You have to work. Somebody has to do it. Fortunately, they're working at a location that's closed because of COVID, so there's no real foot traffic. But you're still out and about. You're still in contact with public transportation and Ubers and the like. You've got to be really conscious. I'm not saying, don't handle your business, but you've got to be really conscious. You've got to be cleaner than you've ever been. And you've got to be conscious enough to be aware of things that normally your brain moves to the subconscious and you aren't thinking about. Like how we touch our face several times a day without thinking about it. We touch our face. And so we also touch things, people, places, and things. So you're getting in out of the Uber, you're touching the car door. What are you touching in the Uber? And then how quickly do you transfer that back to your face? Unless you're conscious of it. Unless you're walking, you ain't distracted by what's going on. Your concern is not making contact with this virus. That's the only way. That's the only way. And the only other way is to stay home. If you can stay home, if you're not, essential employee, if your job does not absolutely require it, by all means, if you can afford it, you should be at home. You should be moving around and moving about and being in social. And the booty call is off limits. I don't understand the booty call thing in this environment. That I don't get. The last 2 weeks before he show up at your house. You don't know where she been. All day at her job with her 6 kids. You don't know. And that's plenty of opportunity for someone to be exposed to this COVID. You do understand that children are getting this. People are dying from infancy to 55. People are dying. People are getting sick with this. So you all have a clue. Let's see, beloved. I can't pronounce your name, though I can see it. Niken, I think. I'm not sure. Okay, but I greet you in peace and love for being present and offering us your question. Just give me a second to read it. Once a person gets off of their chosen spiritual path, once they start again, do they start all over or from where they left off? Oh, beloved, that's a really good question. That's a really good question. First, I want you any idea of religion. So think in a indigenous context. Think in an old world context. There is no such thing as getting off the path of your journey. There is no such thing. I know what I'm getting ready to say is going to sound religious, but I don't want you all to be thinking religious. Backsliding, what's that? Backsliding might mean something to the people. The people might ostracize you. The people might set you aside. The people might look at you differently. But that ain't got nothing to do with God. And it don't have anything to do with spirit and the move of spirit. So there's no such thing, even voluntarily. Okay, so I voluntarily got off my path. And so now I'm, you know, doing bad things, going back to, a religious perspective that don't work, for me. Again, that's personally chosen conflict. As painful as it is, as intimate as it is, as important as it is, it's chosen because you still have to stand in your truth, whether you in the church house or the voodoo house, whether you in the mosque, or in the elay, you still have to be authentic in your demonstration. And the magical book says you can't have two masters. You can't serve two masters because you'll love one and you'll despise the other. You'll be used and abused by one, you know, and be aggressively thirsty for the attention of the other.
60 seconds.
You can't serve two masters. So again, there is no getting off the path. There is periods where we have blocks, roadblocks, digressions, make mistakes, you know. But the path, um, I'm trying to make this easy. The path mirrors your life. You can't get off life. You can't pause life. You know, your birthday is going to come around in accordance to the planets regardless. Time is going to keep ticking regardless. So there's no such thing as about getting off the path. You just pick up where you are. You just start again where you
10
are.
seconds.
Now, if your path has ever been authentic, then that which you have gained, like jewels, will always be. They can't be damaged. They can't be broken. If you've gained Iwa Pele, if you've gained decent character, if you've gained morality, integrity, truth, that can't be waned. That can't be turned off. So be careful about mixing, not that you said it, but be careful about mixing any ideology of the path and what the path should look like, and particularly what the path should look like to other people. Don't get that mixed up with the truth. And the truth is that you're walking in your truth every day. Even when you're not walking in your truth, you're still walking in your truth. God's not going to say, okay, well, you know, you were having a bad day. The God sees clearly who you are at every step. The ancestors see who you are at every step. Often when I'm doing ancestor work in divination, I say, you know, the ancestors know what you have and what you don't have. They know what you're wasting and they know what you're saving and putting away. They know an urgency from what's important to you. We often say, oh, it's urgent. I can't tell you how often I get that. How often it's so urgent until we get into conversation, until we have to talk about donation, until we have to talk about doing some kind of homework. Now it's not quite so urgent. It wasn't really that important. It might take me a week to read your response. So no, there's no thing of beloved of getting off the path. There's no such thing. We take a detour. You go down the wrong road. You know, we do that. You get off at the wrong exit. you know, okay, you're going the wrong direction on the turnpike. But there is no getting off the path because we can't put down our obligation to the path. We can't put down our responsibility to the path. Whatever happens in the course of life, while you're quote unquote off the path, still it's going to be docked on your life chart. It's still going to be held responsible to you for what you did or did not do, for your awareness or lack thereof of awareness. So Spirit knows where you are. Spirit knows what you know. Spirit knows how authentically you're interacting with Spirit. You know, people can put on a suit and tie and go to church every Sunday. Don't make you religious. Don't make you spiritual. Don't make you devout. Don't make you a Christian. So there's no such thing as getting off the path. So if you're a real quote unquote Christian, you ain't got to go to church. You ain't got to put on a tie. The truth of your identity that doesn't shed from you. You know, and that's the reality of COVID-19. The truth of who we are right now has to come to the surface. You don't have a choice. The truth of who you are has to come to the surface right now, in this time. And this time, this moment in time has some duration to it. For my new listeners, I already said early in the show, at least July, at least. And even then, it's going to be a new world that we're going to be awakened to, stepping out into. You know, we still might all be wearing a mask or something. It's still going to be rules and protocols. This ain't easily going away. Beloved, if I answered your question about the spirit path, or you need more, let me know. Portia says, what about people that doesn't have a home to go to because of the virus? You talking about like homeless? Because I've been homeless. I've been chronically homeless from the time I left home as a child up until almost 30 something. I was chronically homeless. So are you talking about physical? Okay, listen. I have empathy. I have sympathy for you. I almost got emotional. You know, I get being homeless, but I'm not lenient spiritually on you or a godchild or a client as I did. I had to. I had shrines set up in the bottom of my locker. Okay? I made sure I had a storage unit when I was homeless so that my stuff could be secure. My clothes, whatever could be secure. But I had a shrine set up. I had crystals with me. I had my magical books with me. Again, beloved, it's about really being authentic to who you say you really are. And particularly now when you're homeless. I went to the cemetery more than ever before when I was homeless. I went to museums and libraries more than ever before when I was homeless. Particularly if you don't have a job right now or your timing is, budgeted, because I know we got kicked out 6 o'clock in the morning. So you were either going to a job, going to look for a job, going to handle some other kind of systematic appointments, or you found you something else to do. And for me, that was, I was a vendor, I always, or had a job, I always had some sort of income. But that downtime was in the park, at the beach, at the river, you know, in some sort of sacred space, even if it was out in the natural, um, where I could be peace. Now, in terms, if you're looking for somewhere to go, and I don't mean community centers, organizations, day centers, th- those places that I would have first sought out might not necessarily be open right now. The museums might not be open right now. The libraries might not be that accessible right now. I don't know, because of the virus. So you have to be creative. Use your internet, search for books, on the internet if you have to. Um, but by all means, find a place out in nature where you can be free. You need at least some places outside of that life, being homeless, where you feel free, where you still feel whole, where you still feel the truth of who you are. So I always dressed nice. I wore my finest clothes when I was homeless. Uh, I dressed like this when I was homeless. Nobody looked at me and said that I was homeless, unless I told them I was homeless. And often when I did tell them I was homeless, it was because I needed something. I needed to arrange for something. And it was always to my best interest. Um, just be careful, beloved. Um, be careful. Be creative about weaponry. Get you some mace and get you a big crystal. These are items that could, be gotten in and out of shelter without any kind of drama. you know, I once got caught with a knife in the bottom of my shoe trying to come into a shelter, and got barred and ended up sleeping in an abandoned meatpacking facility in Atlanta, for a whole summer. In fact, if you're familiar with Atlanta and you at the Greyhound station and you stand in front of the Greyhound station, it's a hill right there. And it's condominiums and apartments and one of the tallest buildings that you could see from there, which is now a condominium duplex, a complex. Used to be in a meat packing facility. And when I stayed there, I mean, it had been empty for decades. So it wasn't in there, nothing in there but dust. No trash, no nothing was in there. It was just concrete and dust. If there were rodents, we never saw any. Never. And so we had furniture, we had battery powered lighting. I had a wind up radio, I had a battery powered TV. I mean, we were doing it right. Me and some people that I met along that journey. And so we accessed resources together. We know where the food was. We know where the cleanest bathrooms were. Because when you're homeless, you need to be able to access a bathroom at your leisure without any drama. And so we knew where the big bathrooms were. We knew where the clean bathrooms were. We knew where the bathrooms that had a lock on it were. You have to again do your homework. I knew where the resources that I needed were accessible, so that during my downtime, that time when you're just out there, waiting on 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock or whenever the time is that they would let us back in there, I was in my world. I was in the spirit world. I was in another place. I spent a great deal of time being homeless in Chicago, and so the lakefront was my sanctuary. The lakefront was my church, especially at Belmont. Some of you are familiar with old Belmont rocks. They were huge boulders, just positioned in the place, almost theater style. And over time, the weather would move them around, and so little niches would open up in them, little cubby holes. I mean, there were cubby holes that you could literally step down into and have rock over your head, and no one would even know you were there. So crazy stuff would happen, and eventually they started tearing up the rock and putting in this new concrete facade. But that's where I would spend a great deal of my time. I could smoke there in peace. listen and tap in to spirit and peace. I could cleanse my crystals in the water and then let them get sunlight, you know, without a whole lot of disturbance other than people looking on, like, wondering what the heck we were doing. But I totally get being homeless, Portia. I do. And if you need information, if you need resources, please, beloved, please. I have a strong homeless ministry. I have a strong prison ministry. If you need anything, email me, and I can see what kind of resources may be available to you in your area. Um, so um, I'm here for you, beloved. Wapani, I see you must tend your gardening. Okay, beloved. Well, you go right on ahead. Ain't nobody mad at you. I'm going to end the show very shortly anyway, unless I get some questions, comments, requests, or raised hands on the phone line that I don't have before. Oh, okay. Hadasha. My apologies for the delay in reading the Blog Talk Radio chat. I see you now. Your question is, I'm also trying to get myself and my house in order and move forward without any outside limitations from anyone. I do not have a problem with self isolation because that is where I hear from my ancestors. I also do not want to serve my job anymore. I like how you said serve your job anymore. Most of the time, I am surrounded by people who are not my tribe. And I pray, Hadasha, 1965, that I pronounce your name correctly. And I appreciate you using the Blog Talk Radio chat. And I sometimes I get talking and I don't remember to switch back from browser to browser. So I appreciate your patience and staying with me while I answer your question. Um, I've been there. I don't have sons. I don't have a father of my children. I'm not you. I don't. I've never had a house. So that's not what I'm saying. But I've been there. I thank you. I appreciate that. And if you want to talk, I can open your mic. Area code 201. Thank you so much, Hadasha, for being with us. I opened your mic.
Thank you,
If
Divine Prince. I appreciate you.
did you want to re-ask your question, or you want me to just?
But I'm listening.
There were several
I
things
came
that
on the show late.
there were several things that I like about what you said, and particularly the wording that you use. Um, Trying to help your sons find the path. They're going to find the.
One, he'll be 22 in May. I have another one that's 24, one that's 33. And I know that they're very spiritual in their own way, but we're not all on the same page. My youngest one right now poses the biggest challenges, and his challenges started when I was going through trying to heal through all of that and do what I know that my parents would want me to do.
Your questions and comments, and particularly how you are wording your questions or comments, because it shows someone who is spiritual, who is on the path, who is open to hearing spirit, but might also be open to some. Um, and typically, they know I'm on air when they do it. Um, and I can't field calls that way. They have to use area code 845-277-9143.
And instance, and I would tell them about energy, and like they'll say, oh, they don't believe it, or my husband would like be totally against me, like burning a candle or something, and I would try to explain to them about negative energy and positive energy. But then now I started to realize that there are some things that they're showing me where they're getting it, but they're getting it at a different a different pace. Everybody's learning at their own rate of understanding. And I had, like you said, I got to look at me as well, because I remember when my mother used to try to show me certain things when I was going through some of my own, my own problems, when I was around my son's age, my youngest son's age, I didn't want to receive it either. But now I get it.
And let me
So I
say,
took that. I'm taking that into. Mhm.
go ahead, beloved. You're taking that into consideration.
I'm taking that into consideration that I too had a learning curve, and they too have a learning curve. So I
Yes.
get that part. So when I said us all being on the same page, I'm at a different stage of learning than they are right now. So I'm still trying to teach them as I'm learning that you got to be aware of these things. You got to really raise your consciousness or your intuition. Like if you're going to go someplace and you just get that feeling like, no, I don't need to go, follow your intuition.
Mm-hmm.
And so just to even explain to them, especially the youngest one, what intuition means, because I believe and I know in my heart that my youngest one is the one that's very gifted in these things. As a parent, and what I understand at this point in time, he is the gifted one. He is the one that will step in my shoes if
Mm-hmm.
anything was to happen. He's just not there yet. So in the meantime, I'm trying to protect him and school him at the same time because
Mm-hmm.
there are some things that are happening with him and around him that one I know he's not equipped to handle at this point.
Yeah.
He's trying to be independent,
Mm-hmm.
but he's trying to be independent in the wrong way, and I'm trying to keep him from getting into further trouble or falling into these traps that are being set for him.
And that I understand. I really do. Again, at the age of your children are they're adults, and so they're going to experiment. They're going to do things you don't agree with. They have to now
Right.
learn on their own, and sometimes we learn the hard way. Sometimes we learn, on the bricks, as we used to say in Chicago. So you can't
Mm-hmm.
control that. All you can do is influence that by your
Right.
demonstration and remain present for them, remain open for them. Never, put them in a position where they don't feel they can come to you or talk to you about what might be happening. But you gotta,
Yeah. Well, my youngest did get to that point where he stopped talking and he stopped being honest. And we never used to have that relationship before everything started to go crazy.
yeah. Well,
That's
another
actually
point,
what happened.
another point I wanted to make too is find your language, find your words, read books, read
Okay.
documentaries, and then expose them to the books, to those documentaries, so that
Hmm.
everyone finds their words. If you can't explain it, you can't expect them to get it. If you don't have all the words to make it make sense to them, you can't expect them to get it either. So, me and my mom would sit and watch documentaries about voodoo, about marijuana, even. We watched several
Hmm.
documentaries about marijuana. Me and my mother, 20
And
years,
these
20
and
years
these are
ago.
things I've been trying to get him to watch. I'm glad you said that.
Hmm.
About that, I've been trying to also get him to watch things about voodoo, people playing games, doing things to derail you. I've been trying to get him that, not to instill fear, but to instill that consciousness.
Right. That's
You
right.
understand? I have